Now, for having done such a good job of describing it, you said you wanted to see competition. So shall I click on that? Okay, so I'm going to click here on competition. Back on track, yeah. So we're building our bike shop, and we're looking at competition. And now I can go and add who I think my competitors are here. And I'm going to talk to you about why I want to do that in just a minute. So if I move around here, I've got this little add button that I can add competitors. I can also add categories of competitors.
Yep.
So in some businesses, you might have individual organizations that you see as direct competitors. In others, you might see categories of competitors. So, for example, I might say I'm competing with hardware stores because they also sell bike components, for example. And I don't want to name all the hardware stores. I just want to say hardware stores as a category. Or there might be a specific hardware store, or perhaps another bike retailer that I'm worried about. So I can deal with them either as competitors and categories. It's probably worth saying before we do this, there's a lot of debate around, should you really worry about your competitors or should you just focus on your own business? And a lot of businesses that do focus on the competitors fall into the trap of trying to copy their competitors. Now, as a strategist, the reason that I always look at competitors is you want to not compete. Right? If you can find an area of the market or a need in the market where you have as little competition as possible, you make your life a lot easier. And so the reason for thinking about competitors, in my view, is more so that you can avoid them.
So basically, you're suggesting, I think, that you're looking for a unique value proposition to a fundamental market problem, and that value proposition is ideally something that no one else in your market competes against.
That's absolutely right. It's a truism that your life is always easier if you're not competing. If you go all the way back to Sun Tzu 2,500 years ago, the supreme art of war is not to fight. Okay, because if you get into a fight with a competitor, invariably, even if you win, it's still not as good as if you'd avoided the fight. You still end up with bruises and etc. So you want to try and avoid competition. Now, I can ask the AI, which I think is what you wanted me to do. So I can say we've still got our Bob's Bike Shop. Who might I be competing with? And it's going to come back in a few seconds with some suggestions of who the competitors and the competitor categories are.
So, folks, watch out. This should be another real-time moment where we should be, I hope, amazed and impressed by the output of the AI. Again, good tune. There we are.
Okay. Yeah, and so it's come up with some, so you would imagine Condor Cycles. I don't know Condor Cycles, but you would imagine they would seem a direct competitor. John Lewis. Would I have thought of them as a competitor for a bike shop? I presume perhaps the AI understands that they sell bikes. I don't know if that's true. Wiggle, obviously a big competitor. So it's come up with some specific names. I've never heard of Condor Cycles. Let's try them. So it's opened up a record. So it's opened up a record. Now, it's got a logo for them, which it's found their website and it's found their logo. At this stage, it hasn't done anything else. I can ask, say, tell me a little bit more about it.
Okay.
And what it'll actually do, if we give it a few more seconds, it'll come
another
up
real-time moment.
Yeah. What I'm hoping it's going to do is come up with a description of Condor Cycles as well as an evaluation, it has done, a description of them here.
So here's a competitor we've never heard of. We didn't know anything about. The AI has picked up. There wasn't initially a description. You've asked the AI. It's filled out the description.
Yeah. So it's given me a description. It's also given me, it's an assessment of the competitive strengths and further down here, the competitive weaknesses of Condor Cycles to Bob's Bikes, which doesn't exist yet. So the only thing it's got to go on is everything we've told it about our strategy. So it knows our SWOT and PESTLE and business model canvas and the other competitors. That's all it knows. And it's come up with an analysis of what it thinks Condor Cycle's competitive strengths and weaknesses compared to Bob's Bikes might be. So that's really useful in you thinking about how you want to position yourself, because you want to be differentiated from Condor Cycles.
Yeah, and actually
right?
we're talking about here an entrepreneur building up a bike business. But I mean, from a consultant's point of view, to be able to walk into a client and say, look, this is a new assignment. We haven't yet formed a relationship. We've done a little bit of due diligence, and this is our assessment of your competitors. It's not a bad start to the day, is it? And particularly since the AI has also gone out and found potential pestle threats, SWOT analysis, and Porter's 5 forces. It's a pretty good start to a relationship. Yeah. Okay.
So Barry, you're absolutely right. Before I go and see a potential new client, in about half an hour, I've got a fairly good, now, I'm not going to know the business as well as the CEO or the COO or whoever it is I'm meeting, but I'm going to go in there with an informed view, and I'm going to sound like someone who has thought about this business. And, to be fair, I have. I've just used this tool to help me think about it more quickly.
Yeah, you're significantly better informed than otherwise you would have been had you not got StratNavApp in your briefcase.
That's absolutely right. So that's a real boon for me as a consultant rather than for me as a business owner.
Okay.
So it's done that. And we could go through each of these competitors, and we could look at these competitor categories and go through and think about them in more detail as well. Again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to do that.
So are we in a position where we can go to the one that we did previously?
I'm going to do 2 more things for you before we do that.
Okay, I'm very excited
before
by
we do that, Barry. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is and it's suggesting this at the top. It's saying, so the next thing to consider is, what are the factors that a customer might consider when deciding whether they should come to Bob's Bikes or one of these other competitors? So I can go over here and it'll give me a blank screen where I can start inputting these factors, or again, I can just ask the AI.
So that was on the competitor's screen under factors, correct? Maybe we can have a look at that again in a second.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So we're back on the same screen, but now it's suggested these factors, right?
Right.
So it's suggested that these are the things that a customer might consider when choosing to come to Bob's Bikes versus a competitor. So I might take that and say, so I need to think about those things, and I might then at this point go back and look at my business model canvas and say, do I know how I'm going to address those things? And I also, when I'm, putting up the poster to go outside my shop or sending out my emails, think these are the kind of things that I should be talking about when I'm talking to my customers.
Okay, perfect. That's really useful. And invaluable, actually. Really, I mean, it's giving you this significant strength to in terms
and again,
of analysis.
You would look at that and you would look at that and you might add and amend or delete some of these or change them. But it's important to think about, because I mean that's the choice your customers face every day. I want a bike. Are they going to come to you with their pounds, or are they going to Condor Bikes?
So you'd say here, you go, right, after-sales support is a factor, convenience is a factor, price is a factor, your product range is a factor, and product expertise. How many small businesses go, what are the factors that we can offer that we really need to focus on? Are we going to be a cost leader in here, or are we going to be a differentiator? Are we going to lead on differences? Are we going to put a little cafeteria in our bike shop that's going to make it like a bike cafe? Or are we going to be bargain basement? Are we going to be the cost leader in our market? Because we don't want to be competing against other cost leaders, do we?
No, that's exactly right. And if I was advising you as a small business owner, I would be saying what you want to be doing now is you want to be, when you're talking to people you think are potentially customers, your friends or people in the area or whatever it is, you want to be sounding them out about these factors. And you want to be sounding out how much importance do they attach to them? How do they think about these factors? And again, you can click on any of these and you can capture whatever information you learn, because you really want to reflect on and make sure you understand what these decision criteria are. And once you've done that, the last thing you can do is you can go to the strategy canvas, where you can map out. Here it's taken the product categories from the previous screen, the factors here. And so you can say, for example, Bob's Bike Shop, where I can click on one of these and open it up. Remember, whenever the drag and drop is being a little bit finicky, you can click on it. And I can go down here and say, where's Bob's Bike Stores? Bear with me for a second. I can say, we are going to be less competitive on price. Right. We're not a stack 'em high and sell 'em cheap.
So going to be a differentiator potentially.
Yeah.
That's some differentiation.
Bikes Direct obviously is going to be much more competitive on price. Chain reaction cycles, I don't know. We'd have to go through all of these, right? Condor cycles, do you remember, were they price competitive? I think they were less price competitive as well. They were also a high-end brand. But I can go and score each of these things on the
You just moving the sliders from less competitive to more competitive. Okay. Or price.
And I can say here, so I can say, for example, hang on, I'd actually say department stores with bike sections are likely to be cheaper, but without any. So I can write an explanation of why I think. So I can move the slider to indicate whether I think they're going to be more or less competitive, and I can also write the explanation without any meaningful sales support.
Right.
Okay, so I can fill those out, and you'll see as I do, it will start to change the shape of these curves.
Okay, got it. And in fact, from the drag and drop is terrific, and it allows you to just do it visually. Very, very useful.
And what you're trying to do with this image is you're trying to understand the competitive positioning of each of these categories against these criteria. And what you're trying to do is differentiate yourself. So you want the shape of the line. This line here represents Bob's Bike, and you want it to be different to the shape of the line for the competitors. The more different it is, the easier it is to stand out in the market, and the easier it is for customers to say, we choose you because you provide this different value proposition which really appeals to us.
So what we would perhaps see here is with Bob's Bikes community engagement, we'd have more of that. Perhaps a less competitive product range than, say, something like the big stores. Customer service, though, we can really focus on. Well, we'll make that a differentiator. Price, we're not going to compete on price, but our convenience, we're local. We deliver. After sales support is nothing, because now we're experts in bike repairs. And we're only going to specialize perhaps in a very specific range of bikes that gives us that greater differentiation, maybe a high-end or a low-end product range.
And so that'll affect how you set up your shop. It'll affect how you position your services, what you focus on, what you emphasize. It'll affect how you talk to your customers, right? So you're going to emphasize, come to Bob's Bikes because you don't have to drive 50 miles to the nearest Halfords. We're right around the corner. That will help you how you set up and how you position in the market. We've been talking about this for an hour, and we have literally covered the first three categories of analysis.
And in fact, in the time that we've done 38% of the analysis of a strategic analysis. It's sitting up there for those who can't see. If you go to the left-hand navigation bar, or in fact, yes, there it is. And on the strategy board, you see it's brackets 38. It's now saying that we're 38% of the way through. What it is perceiving is the strategic planning or the business planning or the modeling process, whatever terms you're comfortable with. Don't get hung up on the word strategy. It is. That's how far down the line we are at the moment, and we're now just over an hour and a bit into this conversation, starting from absolute scratch, using AI and a little bit of nuance. But reasonably speaking, if you were 38% through a business plan after an hour and a bit, you'd be pretty happy.
You'd be pretty happy, and it's giving you can get a fairly clear sense. You can see in the analysis section, you can see it's telling you how much you've done in each of these areas. And then, by looking at the overall board, you can get a sense of what else there is to do and how much there is to go. You've got this percentage indication, and in fact, you can see right next to it, it's a recommendation. So, if you were a competitive sort and you were saying, well, I want 100%, it's not clear that anyone ever needs to be 100%, but you'd want to be more than 38%. I can click on the recommendations. It's there physically suggesting the next things that you might want to consider. You can click on the bold type, and it'll take you to that section in the tool and provide you with further guidance.